Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are here to give you the ultimate shortcut to being well-informed, diving deep into the source material you need to know. Today, we're cracking open Ed Conway's really fascinating book, Material World, The 6 Raw Materials That Shape Modern Civilization. Our mission really is to unpack this hidden world, this massive dependence our modern digital lives have on, well, physical stuff we barely think about.
Yeah, and I think we have to start by kind of challenging that common idea, that myth, that we're all moving into some sort of ethereal world, the narrative that society's getting smarter, more digital, so we need less physical material.
Right. And if you live somewhere like the US or UK, you might even see, your personal consumption of some things go down a bit.
Yeah.
But that's the key thing, isn't it? The global picture. Globally, material use is it's soaring, going up at a breakneck pace.
Oh, the scale is almost unbelievable. I mean, the book cites this one statistic based on 2019 data. In that 1 year, humanity mined, dug, blasted more raw materials from the earth than in all of human history combined up to 1950.
Wow. Just say that again. More in 1 year than everything before 1950.
Exactly. It just shows this exponential reliance completely contradicts the weightless economy idea.
Okay, that is genuinely shocking. It proves the point straight away. Our phones might feel light, but the system behind them, heavier than ever. So if we accept this, that the modern world is material, let's dig into that dependence. And the book starts with maybe the weirdest one, gold.
Gold is such a perfect place to start because it highlights the absurdity, really. The author Conway, he stumbled onto this because he saw this strange blip in UK trade stats. For a short time, gold exports were bigger than cars or pharmaceuticals.
Which makes absolutely no sense. Britain isn't a gold mining country, hasn't been for ages.
Precisely. And the reason was, well, London. It acts as this huge clearinghouse, a transit point, so vast amounts of physical gold are just being shuffled around the world, passing through London vaults on paper.
Okay, so that explains the weird stat, but where does the actual gold come from? And how do we get it now?
Well, that's where it gets uncomfortable. We're not finding easy gold veins much anymore. Today, getting gold often means literally tearing down mountains, pulverizing rock on a massive scale, and then using what the book calls one of the most toxic cocktails known to humankind to leach out tiny, tiny flecks of gold. Cyanide, often.
Right, and the amount of rock you need to process is just enormous now, isn't it?
It's staggering. Historically, maybe, a third of the ton of rock for a wedding ring.
Yeah.
Now, because the rich seams are gone, it could be anywhere from 4 to 20 tons of rock you have to blast, crush, and process for one ring.
20 tons a mountain for one small ring.
All right.
That puts the environmental cost in perspective.
It really does. And you think about what gold is actually used for. Keynes called it a barbarous relic. Less than 10% goes into electronics or chemistry, where it has, unique properties. The vast majority, it's either jewelry sitting there looking nice, or it's a gold bar sitting in a vault, doing nothing.
So we're causing immense destruction for something that mostly just sits there. It's kind of insane when you frame it like that. Okay, let's shift from gold, that sort of heavy, unproductive relic, to something completely different but equally vital, sand. Sand feels so basic, but the book presents it as both ancient foundation and, weirdly, the key to our modern brain, our computing power.
That's a perfect description. And it's another thing we misunderstand. You can't just grab any old sand. For construction, you need coarse, angular grains. They have sharp edges. They lock together when you mix them with cement and water.
Ah, right. Unlike desert sand, I remember reading that desert sand is basically useless for building.
Exactly. The wind erodes it, makes it smooth and rounded, like trying to build with tiny marbles. It just doesn't bind.
So you need the right kind of sand.
Mm.
And that specific sand, mixed with stone and cement, gives us concrete.
Which is the foundational material. Our cities, our infrastructure, it's mostly concrete. Something like 80% of all building materials. And if you mix that same useful sand with bitumen, you get asphalt. Our roads.
So sand builds the physical world, but then there's this leap. Melting sand gives you glass.
Yes, silica melted down.
Right.
Glass is fascinating. It's still a bit of a scientific mystery, actually. It's not quite liquid, not quite solid. Its atomic structure is amorphous, not fully understood even now.
But this mysterious substance,
Yeah.
it's been a game changer throughout history. A general purpose technology, as the book calls it.
Totally. Think about eyeglasses, lenses. Suddenly people could keep working, reading, crafting for decades longer. Huge economic impact.
And mirrors. I love the bit about the Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci using glass mirrors to perfect perspective.
Yeah, he called the mirror the master of painters. changed art. And today, glass is literally the internet. Fiber optic cables carrying data as light.
Made from sand. Okay, but the ultimate evolution of sand, that's the silicon chip, right? Silicon supremacy.
That's the absolute peak, turning sand into the brain of our devices.
And the engineering involved here is just mind-boggling. You're creating transistors measured in atoms.
It requires unbelievable precision. Companies like Wacker in Germany producing hyper-pure silicon, they guard their processes like state secrets. It's incredibly valuable IP.
And this is where the geopolitics really hits home for, for anyone listening.
Absolutely, because the whole supply chain is incredibly specialized and fragile. It rests on just a few key companies. You've got TSMC in Taiwan basically making almost all the really advanced chips. And then ASML in the Netherlands making the unique, incredibly complex lithography machines needed to print those chips. Nobody else can make them.
So when you hear about, say, the U.S. wanting to secure semiconductor supply chains or worries about China, it's really about controlling access to this tiny handful of obscure, absolutely critical firms. The power behind your phone chip starts with them.
Precisely. It's a massive strategic vulnerability built on sand.
Okay, sticking with critical, maybe overlooked materials, let's talk about salt. Salt seems so mundane, essential for life, obviously, but industrially important.
Oh, massively. Salt isn't just a biological need, it's the absolute bedrock of the modern chemical industry. There's that old saying, he who controls the salt controls the universe. And historically, that wasn't far off.
Because it was so vital for preserving food before refrigeration.
That was a big part of it, yes. But it also made it a perfect political tool, a pinch point for control and taxation.
Right, you see that everywhere.
Yeah.
China had state salt monopolies going back thousands of years, 7th century BC. And the French salt tax, the gabelle, that became this huge symbol of everything wrong with the old system, the ancient regime. It fueled the revolution.
Exactly. Or think about Gandhi in India, 1930. His most famous protest, the Salt Satyagraha, was against the British colonial salt tax. The British made it illegal for Indians to just collect their own salt from the sea. They forced them to buy taxed government salt. It was about asserting dominance.
So historically potent. But what about now? How is salt a bedrock today?
It's all about a process called the chloralkali process. It's industrial chemistry on a colossal scale. Basically, you take brine salt water and use massive amounts of electricity electrolysis to split it apart.
Okay, into what?
Into two absolutely fundamental industrial chemicals, chlorine and caustic soda, or sodium hydroxide, and the scale. The book mentions one plant in the UK where a single room doing this uses more electricity than the entire city of Liverpool, just to split salt.
Wow. Okay, so what do we use chlorine and caustic soda for?
Chlorine, essential for water purification, sanitation. Without it, cities wouldn't function safely. Also used in PVC, plastics, pharmaceuticals, loads of things. And caustic soda is vital for making soap, detergents, paper. And really importantly, for refining aluminum. You need it to process bauxite ore.
So these basic chemicals from salt are everywhere in our modern lives, just completely hidden.
Completely. And here's a mind-bending connection back to tech. Some of the ultra-pure materials needed in those silicon chip foundries we talked about, they start their journey as humble grains of salt, chemically transformed.
No way. So the highest tech starts with the most basic necessity. It all links up.
It really does. It's all connected back to the earth.
Okay, this leads us to maybe the biggest paradox the book explores. The link between going green and using more materials.
Yes, this is the central irony. The push to fight climate change, to build a sustainable future. It's fundamentally a massive material undertaking. In the short and medium term, the green transition requires digging up and processing more stuff, not less. Often, much more.
So we're not dematerializing, we're just swapping out the materials, building a new physical infrastructure, starting with steel.
Steel is the bones. You need incredible amounts of it for wind turbines, solar panel frames, new grid infrastructure, electric vehicles. Right now, in a developed country, there's something like 15 tons of steel embedded in the infrastructure supporting each person. That need isn't going away.
And then copper. The book calls it the veins of electrification.
Exactly. Copper's conductivity is just unmatched for moving electricity efficiently. So electrifying transport, strengthening the grid, that means copper, copper, copper.
And the scale of copper mining is already immense. That example of the Chuquicamata mine in Chile, the world's biggest hole.
Yeah, astonishing. That one mine is responsible for something like 1 out of every 13 grams of copper ever extracted and used by humanity. That's the kind of scale we're talking about.
We also need to rethink oil and gas, don't we? Not just as fuel.
Absolutely critical point. We focus on burning them, but they are essential feedstocks for the chemical industry. Think plastics, fertilizers, pharmaceuticals. So much starts with oil and gas.
The book has that striking example of greenhouse tomatoes being made of fossil fuels.
Right. Natural gas for heating, yes, but also natural gas as the source material for nitrogen fertilizer via the Haber-Bosch process. And often, they pump in extra CO2 captured from burning fossil fuels to make the plants grow faster.
And plastics. The amount is just off the charts.
Unbelievable. Just polyethylene, one type of plastic, its annual production outweighs copper and aluminum combined. Plastic is effectively a new bulk material for everything.
Which brings us to the new oil, maybe. Lithium, the core of the battery revolution.
Lithium is key because it's so light and reactive. Perfect for packing a lot of energy into batteries, for electric cars, grid storage. But getting it isn't simple. It often involves huge evaporation ponds in extremely dry places, like the Atacama Desert in Chile. Basically, pumping up salty brine from underground and letting the sun evaporate the water over months, concentrating the lithium salts. It uses vast amounts of land and water in arid regions.
So putting this all together, this deep dive shows an incredibly complex global web of dependencies, doesn't it?
Totally. An iPhone, an electric car, the components come from everywhere. Iron ore from Australia, smelted in China, using tech with Dutch machines, lithium from Chile, processed in Asia.
And the big household name brands, the Apples, the Teslas, they completely depend on these often obscure companies.
The obscure firms of the material world, as Conway calls them. CATL in China for batteries, Wacker for silicon, TSMC for chips. They're the ones actually making the critical stuff.
Which explains why governments are suddenly very interested in supply chains.
Exactly. You see the U.S. under Biden launching reviews, trying to figure out where the critical dependencies are for things like lithium, rare earths, semiconductors. National security now involves geology and obscure chemical firms.
Control of materials matters more than ever.
Which loops us back perfectly to the challenge of the green transition. Are we actually ready for the sheer material scale required?
The book gives a really concrete example, doesn't it? Replacing one gas turbine power plant.
Yeah, just a relatively small 100-megawatt natural gas turbine. To replace that generating capacity with wind power, you need about 20 massive offshore wind turbines.
Okay, and the materials for those 20 turbines?
Get ready for this. Nearly 50,000 tons of concrete for the foundations, 30,000 tons of iron and steel for the towers, about 900 tons of plastics and fiberglass for the blades, and 540 tons of copper for the wiring and generators.
All that to replace one relatively small gas turbine, which has a fraction of that physical mass.
That's the reality. Decarbonization is physically enormous. It requires a monumental amount of mining, processing, and building.
So the final thought really has to be about that inherent tension, doesn't it? We desperately need this green transition, but are we prepared for the unprecedented level of material extraction it demands? How do we square that circle?
It's the fundamental question hanging over the next few decades.
A huge question indeed, and a challenging place to end. Thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We hope this makes you look at the world around you, the concrete, the glass, even the salt shaker, in a completely new way.